Finally, some good news in Morgantown as the West Virginia men's basketball team make a big signing. Finally, some good news in Morgantown. Welcome and thank you to everybody that's waiting in the chat room. Sorry I'm a little bit late. Still having the allergy issues, guys. I'm beginning to think it's the air quality. As we all know, there's been fires that have just ravaged the air quality, especially in my area. And so I have really been struggling to get content out the last couple of days. That's no joke. I feel like I've had like a needle in my eye or something here for the last 2 days or so. So in both eyes, and it comes and goes. It's really strange. So I've been looking around my house for mold and things like that, but I don't know what's going on. But back to the news, guys. So obviously, we needed some good news in Morgantown. What's up, guys? What's up? Let everybody get in here just a little bit. We needed this, guys. So, while we're waiting on the chat room to fill up just a little bit, welcome on Mountaineer Paul Talks Football. Welcome, Hoops from the Hills. Who's tuning in from Mingo? Well, what do you say? I'm from Mingo County. I am from Dingus. Place called Dingus originally. We will read the sponsorship off. And I'll tell you guys, if you want to do me a big favor, if you know about Dutch Miller at all, do me a favor. Type something about Dutch Miller in the comments while I read this off, guys. Just anything. If you know anything about him at all, the commercials, anything like that, they want me to send any interactions that we have with you guys about them, and I would love to keep them as a sponsor. So it would really help us out if you could just type anything you have about Dutch Miller. This episode is brought to you by Dutch Miller Automotive, where friends and family pricing means you get the best deal right up front on any new or pre-loved vehicle in stock every time. With brands like Chevrolet, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Kia, Hyundai, Ford, GMC, Buick, and Subaru, the Dutch Miller Automotive family is always growing and ready to put you in the car or truck you've been searching for. Check out our inventory across West Virginia at DutchMillerAuto.com or come in today to the home of friends and family pricing, only at a Dutch store near you. So, obviously, we were waiting on some news to break, and a lot of this kind of broke last night. I was a little bit later to the party than usual. Most of the time, I'm pretty on pace with it, but I didn't find out about this commitment until about an hour before it happened today. So I've been a little bit behind in my prep work for everything. This would have happened a little bit sooner, but that's okay. So we had a tweet go out, and I'm trying to find it here. Looks like maybe I don't have it yet. There it is. We had a tweet go out. Obviously, this is the first one I saw from Joe Tipton. Iona grad transfer Quinn Slazinski, former St. John's signee, has committed to West Virginia, he tells On 3 Sports. The 6'9 forward began his career at Louisville, averaged 11.3, 5.7, and 1.5 last season. So, obviously, this is a big deal. And catching up on some of the tape that I had sorely missed regarding this prospect and this kid, I was pretty impressed. From everything I've been told behind the scenes, don't think he's going to be a starter, guys. He's a guy that would start most places in America. But it all depends on what happens going forward. Obviously, we'll get to Jose here in a minute. But this is a guy that's right around 34% from the three-point line. He can shoot off the dribble, and it's really good for 6'9". He's a below-the-rim type player, but he's crafty. Similar to Jose in that he just knows how to score it, but he's got a really, really neat stroke from behind the arc, and kind of reminds me of Kevin Pittsnogle a little bit, guys. So he's kind of similar to that Kevin Pittsnogle type shooter. Not quite as good from deep as Pittsnogle was. Pittsnogle was a really high percentage three-point shooter, but he's also a guy that hovers right around that 44, 45% range when you get into just overall field goal percentage. And obviously, he's a pretty tight free throw shooter. Then you started getting some of the other analytics, and he's really good on defense, it turns out. He's a really solid defender. And when you bake it all into a pie, you start to see, okay, this is a really, really nice ad. And really, you could slot him in at the 4 if all else fails, and this other guy that I think we may get doesn't end up coming. This is a little more high end. Uh, this is a guy that could certainly slot into the floor and give you minutes and give you 10, 12 points for a season ish in that range. And last I checked, that's what Trey averaged last year. And he shoots a little bit better percentage from three than Trey did. He's not as good on the block. Obviously, Trey could go over either shoulder, left, right, and was extremely skilled with his footwork. Face-up game was on point. But this kid can shoot it better than Trey, and I'd say they're a push on the defensive side of things. So not really. This is a huge ad, and I think if he has to start, he'll play well. But I think that they've got their eyes on another person who this will segue in. And we're all, by the way, guys, so those of you watching on Mountaineer Paul Talks Football, we're going to get into the depth chart as well. I'm late to the party on it. I know, like I said, the allergies, guys, you have to forgive me. But let's talk some depth chart. A little bit surprised with some of how that played out. We'll get into some of that here a little bit later on the show. But I think a lot of us are wondering about one man and one man only, and that is, some people love him, some people don't. Some people dislike how he handles himself on social media, but there's no doubting that we need Jose Perez to return to Morgantown. And all indications are that there's a good chance that may happen now. I have to be careful with what I say here. There are certain things I'm allowed to and not supposed to say yet. So I'll just say that there's a good chance that this happens now. And if that does happen, obviously and this is pretty common knowledge, at least on some of the paid sites. There is a former top 30 big guy. I'm assuming it's a big guy from what I can be able to work out that should be coming with Jose, that is connected to Jose if he indeed does come back into Morgantown. So obviously he would be slotted into that 4th spot alongside Jesse Edwards were he to come. Can't say much more on it, guys. Just be watching for that. Let's get to some of the comments. And oh, by the way, guys, support the show if you can. The super chat button is sorely something we'd be thankful for if you could help with, for sure. And you can donate anything you would like to, a one-time donation. You can certainly do things as often as you want. We'll take it. But this, for me, this is my career. This is what I do. So anything is given is truly a blessing, and I'm grateful for. Give me a thumbs up, Steve Davis. I like that. Do you think Danger's ETN as a backup center or any other centers? Yeah, I don't think Dandridge, he's a guy who, when we first reached out to him, there was some smoke. Then they backed off, and then there was smoke again. And then it turns out St. Louis, which is closer to home for him, has really become a front runner to land him. I won't say no all the way on him yet until he commits elsewhere. Certainly he would be a great pickup. But there are a couple out there that are just a little better. Etienne's a kid that unfortunately got injured. Really high-end prospect. He's a top 30 guy. A lot of people speculated maybe it was him. He's from New York. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's not him. I don't think he's the guy connected to Jose, but I do think he would be a good starting guy right along Jesse. He did not average much there at UCLA last year, but I think coming off that injury, if you go look at his high school tape, he looked a lot more bouncy and athletic. And I think Etienne's a guy that's really struggling to come back from an injury, or at least not back to 100% yet. And sometimes that takes 2 years. We've got a super chat here, first one of the day. Mason Ferguson sent a 99-cent super chat sticker. Very grateful for that, man. You didn't put a comment down there, so not exactly sure what you may or may wanted to say, but we'll be grateful for that nonetheless. Seth Wilson, who is dark horse for this upcoming season in basketball or football, Seth? Um, in football, I'll probably say I think UCF is a school that is not a lot of people are talking about. They've got a ton of momentum in the recruiting rankings, and Gus Malzahn is certainly a top three head coach in the league at this point. So I'll say UCF is a dark horse first year in the league. I do think they're going. Most teams are going to struggle the first year in the league, and UCF included. But if you're just asking for a straight up dark horse off the top of my head, I'll go them. If you're talking about basketball, it's a little bit trickier. The new ads to the league, and especially Houston, who was an elite school in basketball last year, wouldn't necessarily be a dark horse. Um, it's tough because a lot of these rosters are still unfinished. But I like the Mountaineers. I really do. I think we are building a team that a lot of people think is not in the top half of the Big 12. I'm inclined to think we are, especially with today's ad. And if Jose comes back, I'll put our money on us. I think we got a good team. Maybe I'm biased. I don't have a show about Mountaineer athletics or anything like that. Mason Ferguson with the sly remark. Um, Here's all I'll say about this one. He's not in the portal yet. So take that for what you will. Acock is a top 30 former 5-star guy who may or may not have some connections to Jose Perez. Um, Not in the portal yet, unless he's gone in the last couple of days. I haven't checked. But from everything I understand, he's not in the portal yet. So West Virginia would not be able to be in contact with him yet, as far as I know. So that's really all I can say on that one. But yeah, there would be interest if he was in the portal for sure. As usual, guys, give Couz hell down in the comments. He's still on vacation, leaving me here to do all this work. Can you believe that? What he does to me. Go Mountaineers, Larry Westfall. Appreciate you for being here today. I thought he was in the portal. No, he's still in Georgetown. You can check for me. But as far as I know, Acock is not in the portal yet, from what I know. Now, like I said, I could be wrong. Um, it happens from time to time. Cold D, man. You know what to say about Dutch Miller Auto Group? They're so good at selling cars, they could probably sell a tricycle to a cheetah. I love that, man. And they'll love that. I really appreciate that a lot. Um, because they love the goofy stuff like this. So I think they'll like this comment. Really appreciate that comment, Goldie. Oh, I'm getting back over here to comments that have already happened. I think Dutch Miller, only place I'd purchase a car from. That's what I'm talking about, David Kimmer. Is Dutch Miller Dutch? Dutch Miller, I think, passed away. He's the original owner. Chris Miller, governor candidate in West Virginia, who also sponsors this show. Now, if he wins that thing, be nice to have him in our corner, won't it, guys? But yes, Chris Miller, who is the owner of Dutch Miller, will be running for governor this year. Uh, he's got my vote. That's all I'll say about that. Don't want to get into politics too much. Funny commercials, keep it up. Hello from England. Wow. Don't know if I've had that one yet. Pretty cool. All right, guys. So when talking about some football, because I know some of you guys right. Big Aaron with the super chat. What's up, Big Aaron? Um, it's a good question. I think concerning Neil Brown, I mean, if you want me to be honest with you, I would just love for him to be the last coach that we see in our generation, and that he where he turns into a Frank Beamer. Who, if you look at Frank Beamer and what he did at Virginia Tech, he didn't win for the first 4 or 5 years. It happens. That's my preference. That Neil Brown, because I do like the man, um, is that he would just turn into a really good coach, the guy that we thought we got. Outside of that, West Virginia University has never in their history fired a coach midseason. It's never happened. So I don't necessarily think, unless things are completely off the rails, and we're talking about maybe an 0-5 start, something like that, or 1-4, then maybe a lot of that talk will really start happening. Poor Rem Baker, if that does have to happen. But to answer your question, I think you got to get that thing over early if you're going to do it, because of the way roster management is these days. You want to get on a coaching search as soon as possible. Otherwise, you have a John Beeline situation like this past year after with Hugs. Or you got guys like Andy Kennedy and people like that who are reluctant to leave their previous jobs because they don't know what's going to happen with the roster. In the old days, a coach could get fired. The players were still on the team when the new coach got there. Well, Beeline, from what I understand, was going to do that for West Virginia until they heard about it and said, no, unless you hire Eilert, we're heading to the portal. And that's basically the biggest reason that I know of that Beeline didn't make it to Morgantown, along with some of his demands that were, I think WVU didn't want him to do. I think they wanted him to sign a 1-year deal, and he wanted a 3-year deal too, things like that. But generally speaking, it was the roster management. So I think that's a big deal. So for basketball, I think you pretty much heard it. There's a kid from Israel. I'm not going to pretend I know how to say his name, but there's a kid from Israel that a lot of people are talking up right now, international player. West Virginia has been really good at signing international players this year. There's somebody in the excuse me. There's somebody in the program that's really good with the F1 visas. I'm telling you, man, these allergies. Um, and if you're not familiar with F1 visas, basically all they are is, and I had to research this for a video. So obviously, international players can't make as much as American-born players unless they're pro athletes, and there's a different kind of visa altogether. But the F1 visa in the past have been for amateur athletes, and in order to get around that, because let's say the highest they can make is 30K or something like that, which is nothing compared to what some of these players are making. You have to go to that person's country or another country of their choice and do deals over there, and they get paid over there. And that's what they've done with Kirk Risa. That's what they've done with Jesse Edwards, and probably with one or two other on the roster, like James Okonkwo at one point in time, people like that, where, like I said, they are working through visas. So it's a really interesting deal how that's working out. So I think that's one of the reasons we got a Jesse Edwards and a Kirk Risa is because we have people in West Virginia at our university and in the trust that know how to, I don't know which, but that know how to do the F1 visa loopholes, which are legal. There's nothing illegal about it, very well. And on the football side of things, by the way, there's 2 spots left open. Obviously, will linebacker is a huge position of need, but it's all about who comes available. They're not going to take just anybody. That's what I know. So I think at the end of the day, they're always going to take a defensive lineman. they're always going to take a will linebacker and a receiver if somebody like that pops open. I personally think another receiver would be great and a will linebacker, but I'm not the coaching staff, and they seem to be bullish on what they got. What's up, Mountaineer Lair with Kenny? Um, well, like I said, there are people that feel like the there's a good chance he comes back now. Obviously, with Jose, from day to day, it's just hard to say what the hell's going on. It's just the way it is right now. He's got certain people he trusts and that he talks to, and they give him advice and whatnot. He doesn't have a handler or an agent, or at least not one that's public. And so a lot of this stuff is just him doing it. So there's a lot of, uh, it's not very, there's an instability there, like with from day to day. So, but as of today, people feel pretty good. I think this is the best team we've ever had with McNeil and Keedy. Yeah, possibly so. If you're asking me to, if you're asking me to put it out there how I feel, um, I'm truly split on this, man. I really am. Because I don't have. I mean, I have inside info as to how people feel today, but as of tomorrow, this could all be different. I'm gonna say he goes. I just and now to keep in mind, I said most people think he's going to stay, but there's just something about this situation that screams somehow he's going to make it to Michigan or Gonzaga or one of those two visits. And if he goes, I don't think he comes back. So, and we're coming up on those visits as we speak. So, current roster players can't enter the portal anymore. Maybe we get lucky and, we don't lose anybody else and keep him. So, it'll be great. It's a good question. Yeah, for sure. And I think, the staff has realized that this is something they can target. And we have very willing and able guys that are willing to do that as well. And not to mention, a few of the players on staff now have played overseas, so they kind of know what to look for and they know what would work over here. So I think that's important to note. This is super chats, did I? No. All right. Getting into, we got to talk about some football as well, guys. So getting into some of the football stuff, obviously the depth charts. It's the offense first. Uh, I don't know what you guys thought, but there was a couple. I mean, I would thought they were some shockers, to be honest with you. Um, and I talked with Keyshawn Cobb just yesterday, or maybe it was the day before, um, and he told me that there are just to wait. This that chart is preliminary. Not everything is in stone yet because he was labeled as the backup to Aubrey Burks. And to be honest with you guys, I thought he was going to be possibly our best secondary player this year outside of Burks. So, on one hand, I think that says a lot about Keyshawn Cobb that they're using him as the backup Aubrey. But at the same time, I really would love to see him on the field. So, a little bit torn there. But I'm a big Keyshawn Cobb fan. And I really thought they were going to use him in the cat safety spot, but they haven't done that. That's one. And then, obviously, here's the defensive side. I think Day Hawkins is a little bit further down the list than I thought he was going to be as well. I'm really high on Day Hawkins, guys. I've said it on this show multiple times or on Mountaineer Paul Talks Football. which we're streaming on both. If you didn't notice, we're streaming on Hoops from the Hills and Mountaineer Paul Talks Football simultaneously. I've got a separate thumbnail for each channel. One was about the depth chart. One was about this signing. So that's why we're talking about both. But I think Day Hawkins is going to be a disruptive force on the defensive line this year. It's not a matter of, it's only a matter of when, not if, in my opinion. Let's see. I've got an article as well. I don't know if I can read it though because it's so small. It came up so small. Without Couz and his fancy computer. All right. So, talked to Keenan Cummings earlier about this article he wrote about the depth chart. And I think this kind of pretty much encompasses all of the concerns and then just kind of wraps it all up into a nice bow. If you guys have any questions, comments, or concerns about this after I read this quick article, we'll go there. So it says at quarterback, there's no surprise that initially, the initial depth chart lists both Garrett Green and Nico Marchiol with the "or" tag. Head coach Neil Brown has already stated that the battle at the position will go into fall camp, so any type of announcement before then would be downright shocking. Oh, I missed something, didn't I? I guess I got to get this comment off. There we go. Sorry about that, guys. All right. The pecking order at running back is also as expected with C.J. Donaldson at the top, followed by Jalen Anderson. The rest is rounded out with Johnson Johnson and Jaheim White. This group is going to see a lot of action, so placement might not matter as much, but Donaldson paces the pack. Both Traylon Davis and Cole Taylor also shared an "or" tag at tight end, and the two are very different players, as Davis is more of a blocking option, while Taylor was recruited to serve as a pass catcher, which is very true. It wouldn't be surprising in the slightest to see West Virginia utilize them both in those roles and even have both of them on the field at the same time. Devin Carter being the lead at Z and Cortez Braham at the X was already spoiled by head coach Neil Brown. But Jeremiah Aaron and Grayson Malsevich atop their spots isn't terribly shocking either. Malsevich, I hate saying his last name, shares this role with Jarrell Williams and Noah Massey, and there's depth in each of those spots here, although relatively unproven, at least in Morgantown. There should be plenty moving around between the spots as well. The Mountaineers look to get the most out of each spot. Offensive line was cookie cutter. On the left side with Wyatt Milam at tackle, Tomas Rimac at guard, Zach Frazier in the middle at center. On the right side were a few adjustments. Brandon Yates and Jaquay Hubbard are at guard. Doug Nestor's at tackle. Now, this certainly doesn't guarantee this is how it ends up, as each of these people can move around if need be. But it's definitely an interesting organization of the position prior to the start of fall camp. There's also plenty of depth across all positions, although some, if it needs to prove itself. All right. On the defensive front, West Virginia is expected starting group of Edward Vistarinen, Mike Lockhart, and Sean Martin, but there's depth behind as the Mountaineers should go 8 deep behind the starters with players such as Day Hawkins, Jalen Thornton, Hammond Russell, Batorma Mulba, Taurus Simmons, Asani Redwood. Not going to try to say it. They're battling for spots. Bandit Jared Bartlett returns as the starter for the 17th year in a row, but there's more than quality depth that the program has had there in several seasons with transfer Tyron Bradley and freshman James Hurd, who you guys all know I'm extremely high on. I think of all the players on the roster, James Hurd Jr. has a chance to be a freshman All-American this season at the Bandit spot. I wouldn't even be surprised to see him take it over by year's end. Lee Koba was the no-question starter at Mike, while the Will spot lists Gyro Fabris ahead of Trey Lathan for the time being. That battle is expected to continue into the fall, while others such as Tyreek Austin Cave could fill each spot if need be. The depth here is concerning simply because there aren't many options to select from, and we'll need to show that this year. And the last part is there's depth at spear with Lance Dixon, Hershey McLaurin, Riley Collins, all listed with the OR designation. That's a shocker as well. The position is going to have options. Aubie Burks is the expected starter at free, with Keyshawn Cobb backing him up, while Marcus Floyd and Anthony Wilson are listed at the catch spot. The latter must take a major step forward in order for the secondary to prove the overall product. Quarterback was addressed with transfers, but remains open as one spot lists Andrew Wilson Lamp or Montre Miller, while the other is Malachi Ruffin, Beanie Bishop, or Jacoby Spells. West Virginia simply didn't get good enough play here a year ago, but with new transfers being added to the mix and those returning players getting more experience, the hope is that they take the next step. It's necessary for the secondary to improve the overall play that's coming fall. So for me, guys, obviously at corner, I think we obviously that's probably the biggest thing that needs to get sorted out, maybe on the team. I have a lot of confidence in some of these players. I think we're going to get some good play out of Montre Miller, Beanie Wells. I really like both of those guys being added to the situation. Checked out some Beanie Wells tape while he's at Minnesota, and he really played well there at times. And he was there, although he didn't start on what was an 11-win team. He was there. He was similar to the sixth man in basketball. He was like the third corner, like he was a really high up kind of guy on a really good team. But I think, like I said earlier, Keyshawn Cobb is a guy I really expected to win one of these jobs. Now, maybe he just fits the free safety spot better, but it's kind of Aubie Burks is such a good player, you can't take him off the field. So Keyshawn Cobb, his day will come, and maybe he'll be a great contributor for us this year and then really play an expanded role going into next year. But they had mentioned that cat safety really needed to step up. And Anthony Wilson, while isn't the greatest cover guy, had 101 tackles, guys, in his last spot. That's impressive, man. And I really think, because they're going to rely on that spot for run support, he's as good as it comes for run support. He's a tackling machine. If you haven't seen my video on Anthony Wilson, it's on Mountaineer Paul Talks Football, where we talk about him being that very same tackling machine. Did I say Beanie Wells? What's up, Zach? Back to Jose Perez. No decision yet. Still has a Michigan visit at the end of the month. Yeah, that's pretty much the latest. Although, like I said, there are at least a little bit of hope. Cole D. We need to crowdfund you a setup, Paul. It'll help the Mountaineer out. Tell Dutch to hook you up. I'll get to 100 more comments like the one above. I like it. I wish it was that simple, man. Really appreciate it. Guys, you got any questions, let me know. This certainly doesn't have to go an hour. Certainly just wanted to get on here and cover the big news of the day, which was obviously Quinn Slazinski and his commitment to the Mountaineers forward, stretch four, kind of a hybrid. Be a really, really good player for the Mountaineers this year. I think he fits in really nicely with what they want to do. He's a plus defender. He's a plus 30% from three. And if you watch his tape, he's got a really sweet stroke and is a great spot shooter. So you talk about, can you imagine Raekwon Battle coming downhill at full speed and picking and popping with the likes of a Quentin Slazinski? It's going to look great. Hopefully it works out. Are you going to do TBT stuff? Can you expand on what that means, Jacob Yoho? I feel like I should know what that means, but I don't. Really appreciate you guys, man. Hey, real quick, for those of you that are watching the video after the fact, if you haven't liked the video, please like the video. There's 75 in here right now. It'd be nice to have 75 likes on the video. I don't know how many there are. Maybe there already is 75. And if you're not subscribed to Mountaineer Paul Talks Football or Hoops from the Hills, it's free. We would love to have your subscription, guys. And also turn the notifications on. And last but not least, please drop a comment below, interact with us. Let us know what you think about the Quinn Slazinski signing. Also about maybe how you feel about Jose Perez and his is he in? Is he out? How do you feel? Obviously, and let us know how you feel about that Mountaineer football depth chart. Were there any shockers on there for you, or was it pretty much par for the course? I'd love to know how you feel. Oh, yeah. TBT basketball. Yeah, I'm going to need Couz for that. Uh, it's just a lot. It's a lot running on a couple channels by yourself while he's on vacation. I need an extra guy for the research to kind of take up some of the slack before we can start covering that as well. But I could certainly. Uh, I'm obsessive, guys. So if I say I'm going to do it, that means I'm going to spend an extra 3 hours a day on it. That's just the kind of fan I am. I'm exaggerating a little bit, but you get what I'm saying, y'all. So if I can get Couz involved, it certainly helps with that. He's really good at. We just work well together. So he's good where I'm deficient, and I feel like I'm good where he's deficient. So we work well together. I went and got some Claritin today, guys. So hopefully this stuff all goes away. I'm telling you, I've been miserable. This has been like it's almost like having the flu in a sense. It just makes you feel sick. All right, guys. Well, if there's not much else for you, I think I'm going to go ahead and shut her down here in about 38 minutes, 40 minutes. Uh, just recap really quick. Quentin Slazinski obviously transfers. One heck of a turnaround. He went in the portal long before Jay Couz and company made another big splash in the portal. Really love seeing that. Mountaineers football depth chart was released a couple days ago. We talked about that. A couple things on there I thought were interesting. And obviously the Jose Perez scenario keeps going and going and going and won't end. When will it end? Well, we hope it ends soon. We would love to see him stay in Morgantown. We would love to have him part of this team and man that 3 spot. If you didn't see him at the Nike Pro League game the other day, guys, Jose Perez dropped 38 and hit 6 threes at a Nike Pro League just 1 or 2 days ago. So we need him in Morgantown. Don't want to overreact, but he looked really good in that game, guys. So really hope you enjoyed this edition of Mountaineer Paul Talks Football and Hoops from the Hills. This video is over. Thank you guys for tuning in, and I'm out.